Our keynote speaker is David Triggs. And David is a chartered engineer and management consultant who studied engineer at Imperial College London and Business Administration and Management at Henley, the Management College. For more than 40 years, he specialized in water and environmental management, working through the UK and worldwide, mainly in developing countries on both small village projects and mega projects in capital cities. David has been a member of the School of Economic Science in London for more than 50 years, where he has studied, taught political economy for a similar period. He's president at the International Union of Land Value Taxation and chairman of the Henry George Foundation at Great Britain. David.
Thank you very much indeed, Kezia. Well, that's not who I am, really. That's some of the roles that I've played at different times. But as Kezia said, mostly I'm water. This, you're looking at water. Water is life. Water is sacred. As a consequence of coming here, and as a consequence of making a brief sojourn into California to look at the irrigation systems and the agriculture in California, and then coming here yesterday and going yesterday to Ground Zero and witnessing the commemoration there. It's water. And the effect of seeing that commemoration brought water here. I cried. And it illustrates, in a sense, the sacrality of water. It's the very essence of our lives, of life. It has this most extraordinary quality of bonding, in the sense of enabling things to coalesce, to join, to form another unit, another unity. In this case, a human body. Most people die in the world that I professionally participated in of dehydration, running out of water. It kills people. Water is a matter of life or death. But it's the most extraordinary substance, because not only is it a matter of life or death, but that self-same substance is the very height of luxury. Golf courses, swimming pools, all sorts of beautiful ways of using water for amenity purposes. I'm departing from my script, as I say, because as a consequence of my experience here and feeling the need not to give you a PowerPoint presentation that is merely catching a few slides. Because what we're speaking about when we're speaking about sacred water and profane markets is people. Man's relationship with water. How should men, society, relate to this sacred element that is vital to all life? So that's really what I want to try and just say a few words about. Again, I, as it were, deflected from Kezia's introduction, because there was no mention there of where I've been. I didn't sleep terribly well last night thinking about this morning, because I knew I was not satisfied with what I had prepared in advance. And what I tried to do, and what I thought I might be in a position to do, but I'm not, is to show you just a very brief clip of a video that was made about the work that I was engaged in 30-odd years ago on the River Ganges, Ganga Ma, Mother Ganges, the source and sustenance of over 300 million people in the Ganges and Gangetic plains. And the film takes the form of a travelogue. I start the journey in the foothills of the Himalayas at the source of the Ganges. And there I meet a holy man. And a holy man says, I ask him, why is this important? And he says, water is life. And he used the term that stayed with me for all those years. The Ganga is the mother of all. Of all. And it's the all that really stayed with me. And in preparation for this, and that's why I say I'm departing from what I'd prepared in London before, I went to visit Mason Gaffney. I mean, for many of us, Mason is a hero. And I didn't know that Mason had spent many years specialising in the study of the economics of water. So when I went to, but that's why I felt before when I was being invited, and Ed Dodson's name was mentioned, and it's as a consequence of Ed Dodson that I am actually here, because it was him that suggested it might be a good idea for me to make a contribution here. And I'm not going to try and explain what Mason has said, because I know Polly is going to do that very, very sufficiently. And that's why I'm looking to take a slightly different angle. But I was with Mason 3 days ago, with Ted and others. And I asked Mason, we're going to be focusing the inspiration of what we're on today is his work in this volume. And I said, Mason, what's the one key message that you would really like people to be sure to take on board from this gathering? And he said, water is common property. Water is common. I thought, the mother of all, common property? Yeah, I can go with that. That sounds just about right. The common property. And so in fact, I do have an angle on this in the sense of what's common. Look at your hand. And you can see water. Look at every body, and there is water. Feel the water. It is a conveyor. It conveys all the elements. It enables them to be fed. So it's the most remarkable substance. But it's common. Common in the sense that it's everywhere. I mean, I'm sure you've all seen those wonderful pictures from the satellites of where they show the globe and there's the Pacific Ocean and there's hardly any land in sight. It's all water. The water planet, sometimes known as. But it's common. It's common to all. We all need it. But we are members of a society. So I've said a few words, and I will skip them then to go to at least one of my diagrams. Yeah, I want to go to there. To put in context water and man. Because water, in economic terms, is in fact land. I mean, what do we mean by land? For economic purposes, we mean all that nature provides is land. By economic terms, it is land. But nature gives rise to land, and what we're here to consider is the relationships between individuals and the land, or water, and society. Because this is the context in which individuals, civilized individuals, interact with the land, with the water. Now, what this gives rise to is that there are not only natural commons of which water terra firma, the air, the atmosphere, the ether are the primary examples. But as a consequence of man's actual social nature, there are social commons. There are, and by commons, what do I mean? I mean all that people need in order to participate in the society of which they are a part. A common, I'm defining, as all that people need to participate and contribute towards the society of which they are a part. So this links with the all. If you are to need, you need the commons. You need not only the natural commons, but you need access to the social commons. And in this context, this links now with our water, because water, as I've already indicated, is the most extraordinary substance. On the one hand, it's natural, and on the other hand, in order to access it, men have to exert themselves. And when men exert themselves in order to access part of labour, they produce water in a form that gratifies a human need. In nature per se, it does not gratify a human need ordinarily. But by exerting oneself, men access that which nature provides, and then it gratifies a human need. So now, what we've got is water as wealth, i.e. man-made, nature modified into a form, captured, conveyed, made available. And now it's wealth. But the other thing about water is that it's used in just about every other form of wealth production. So, of course, I've seen the most profound example in California, where it's used for irrigation. Now, water that's being used for irrigation, or for manufacturing steel, or for producing food in restaurants, that water's not merely wealth, not merely nature, but capital. So we now have the primary terms for economics, economic analysis: labour, land, capital. And this is what we're illustrating here, is that the individual gives rise to labour and capital, and the consequence of their endeavour is that they earn wealth in the form of earnings. But this land, providing the water, is common to all. But we cannot share the land or share the water sensibly. But what we can share is the value of the land or the value of the water. And that's really the key message here, is that if this water is to be available to all, then no one should ever be deprived. So I'm going to now just move to my professional experience, and I won't bother with the slides because I don't think they really add very much. My career took me to India, took me to Africa, took me all over the world, in fairness. I started professional life, I should say, I suppose, working on wastewater treatment plants. I became a manager of sewage treatment works in London, and then progressed to managing the sewerage system and then managing water. So I was with Thames Water for many years, 20 years I suppose it was, before I first went abroad. And I first went abroad to Egypt. And you can't be in Egypt for very long before realizing how sacred and critical the River Nile is. The River Nile is absolutely vital, a cradle of civilization. If that doesn't make it sacred, I don't know what does. The absolute cradle of civilization, the Indus Valley, the Ganges Valley, all the major sources of civilization were associated directly with water. But now, when it's converted into wealth, when it is captured, contained, controlled, and then conveyed, everybody needs it. So let me just recite to you the problem with third world water distribution. My experience, anyway, is that virtually everywhere there's not enough water to go round within the piped system, within an urban circumstance where people are looking to receive a piped water supply. Now, because there's not enough for everybody to have everything they need, i.e., very simply, demand exceeds supply, the controllers of the supply, the water management, is intermittent. So, for example, in Dhaka, where I worked for many years in Bangladesh, water is on for something like 2 hours a day. It's off for 22 hours a day. Now, it just happens to be a feature that all pipe systems leak. When water's only on for 2 hours a day and off for 22 hours a day, the pipes are empty. Empty pipes leak inwards. Sewerage invariably lacks water supply. So it doesn't take too much imagination to work out what empty pipes leak inwards with: sewage. Now, the consequence of that is that the water supply in thousands of cities is contaminated every day. Now, because it's only on for 2 hours a day, everybody has to take their water via a container. A cistern of some sort is used to contain people's water. Now, that, when the water's on for the 2 hours, people fill their cisterns. Rich people put a big, nice, large pipe onto their connection and a big, large pump and fill a very large tank. The consequence of which is that the rich, generally speaking, get the lion's share of the public water supply, contaminated though it may be. But they're getting the lion's share. The poor get nothing. And as I've already pointed out, most people die of dehydration, and the dehydration is actually caused, of course, by diarrhea, by waterborne diseases of one form or another. So the challenge is, my challenge as I saw it for over 20 years working in the developing world, was how do you ensure that everybody gets a basic supply of water? And you can only do that if you ensure that everybody gets a basic supply. World Health Organization standards stipulate 40 litres per head per day. If they can only get that if others are denied it. So you need some technology. Well, I came up with the technology, which is very, very simple. It wasn't acceptable by the World Bank or the like. But the other feature that I should have mentioned in relation to public water supplies where the supply is intermittent, the likes of the World Bank think water meters is the way you should charge for water. Metered water. It makes very much sense, doesn't it? Of course you pay for how much you get. But with an intermittent supply, water meters don't work. Half the time they're measuring air, other half the time they're running backwards. So one of the smart jobs you can get, I say smart in inverted commas, in Dhaka, for example, is to be a water meter reader, because it's a pure fiction. The water meter readings don't mean anything, but that's the very basis upon which they collect the revenue to pay for the public water supply. So I've now got these challenges. There's no revenue, the economics of the whole organisation do not work, but, and it's contaminated, and it doesn't get to everybody. Well, anyway, I hit on a technical solution using drip irrigation technology for public water supplies. Very simple idea, that these tanks, the cisterns that have to be in every household, need to be filled continuously 24 hours a day. But of course, they then need to be filled very slowly. So 40 litres per head per day, a 5-person family, 200 litres per day. Now, imagine, or when you're in water distribution, you divide the city into zones. So imagine a zone with 1,000 households within that zone. And we're now drip feeding into everybody's system their 40 litres per head per day. But now my source water is more than sufficient for my supply. So now I've got spare. So what do I do with the surplus over and above people's basic requirement? Well, now I can go to the market. So here's the sacred water keeping everybody alive. But now I have a market. And let's suppose, and what I can choose to do is for these 1,000 properties, I could offer, let's say, 100 2-star services. And I could say offer 50 3-star services and 20 4-star services, and let's say 5 5-star services. What am I bid? Now, maybe, I can discover the value of the water. What's that water really worth? Has no relationship to the cost of delivering it. What the water's really worth is what those that really want it and are prepared to exert themselves, i.e. pay, to get it. And not surprisingly, you would expect anyway, wouldn't you, that the bidders, now rich against the rich, will bid the price of water up very high. So now we have a revenue stream that's more than enough to cover the costs of distribution, and a revenue that is, as I say, that is in excess. So in that context, as a parallel with sharing the rent, the proposition that I'd like you to consider is, well, let's share now the surplus revenue. Share the value of the water against the, amongst everyone. Safe water for all. The red card is up. Thank you very much.